Hello, YouTube. It's Jonathan at the Piano Lesson. What should we talk about today? Um, I think we could kind of work on how to construct chords, all kinds of chords. Chords with a few notes, chords with a lot of notes, chords with notes that are in the key, chords that are not within the key, chords that you might want to play with certain styles of music or not with others. And different though than different voicings, right? So there's the what notes we play, and then there's how we play them. Right now we're just talking about what notes to play, okay? So let's just dive right in as we always do with our bird's eye cam. And I'm gonna get my magic eraser, take it out, fly across the screen here, and across the, well, it's not a screen really, is it? It's a something. It's a board. I like these. I just like using like real stuff. I don't like using digital things so much. Okay. So whenever you make a chord, okay, in general, you don't even need a clef. Okay. What does the clef do? The clef just tells you what these lines stand for. There's a whole bunch of different clefs. I think in this case, I'm going to use a bass clef because that's also called an F clef, right? It stands for the letter F. That's if you draw an F on the staff. That's actually what that's why these dots are here. And actually, this clef starts on this line, this fourth line. Okay, so that is the F line in the bass clef, right? It's pretty good for writing chords. Anytime you write any kind of chord, you're going to be skipping notes on the staff. So, let me see if I can get a little better marker. What do you think of this? No, that's terrible. That's nothing left in that one. Let's give another one a shot here. How about that one? There's one kind of lurking in the back of my desk. Let's try this. That's not so bad. That's a little weird, but okay. So whenever you see a chord, any kind of chord, you're always going to be skipping letters in the alphabet. And what that looks like on the staff is just going from a space to the next space to the next space to the next space, or if you're on a line. Oh, that's terrible. I'm gonna go back to my original. Oh, I have some. I'm hoarding over here. Let's see. I'm hoarding some in a box over here, and let's see if we can get a new one over there. Ah, yes, success. Okay, here we go. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, look at that! I'm so impressed. There's our bass clef. Let's start on the fourth line. Okay. So that's what that looks like when you're reading music in basic root position chords. Now, the first chord I'm going to talk about isn't even really a chord. It's an interval. So the distance between two notes. You have but usually we're talking about skips when we're talking about chords. So if you're starting on a C, you're skipping up to an E, skipping up to a G, skipping up to a B, skipping up to a D, skipping up to an F, skipping up to an A, and then you're back to the C again. So that's kind of what that would look like. What would that look like? What I did here, or if I start maybe down here, C, no, it's not C. Let's actually do C with some ledger lines down here. That'd give me a little bit more runway. C, right? E, G, B, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, and then we're back to C again. All right, C, E, G, C, G, B, D, F, A. All right, skipping letters in the alphabet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters in the alphabet. Okay, just kind of skipping the letters. Usually we start off. Oh, that's a terrible eraser. That has to be cleaned. What a cluttered office I have. Okay, let's erase that. maybe it's just the ink I'm using. I think the ink could just be old and weird. I don't know. That's odd. What you're seeing as a shadow is kind of like black, icky stuff. Anyway, so a triad, T-R-I-A-D, a triad is 3 notes, right? So 1, 2, 3 skips, C, E, G. That's our triad. Now, in the name of triads, there's typically 3 that we talk about. There's major, there's minor, and there's diminished. So I think of that as, let's say, happy, sad, scary. That's our sounds. Now, there is another chord augmented, and that's if you take the major chord and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you raise the 5th note of it. That's kind of called the question chord. What? So lends itself to the whole tone scale. All of these chords kind of track to a certain kind of scale or a certain kind of tetrachord. Major, minor, right? Diminished, right? And let's see. That's the other diminished scale. Ends up in the same place, interestingly enough. So you could start with a half step, half, whole, or you could go whole, half, whole, half. You still end up at the tritone, which is kind of interesting. But all of those track to certain scales, and you're skipping notes, all right? So E to E flat, right? That would be your from major to minor, and the diminished would be the E, C, E, G flat. And if you want to make a major chord, well, then you would make that sharp, or excuse me, an augmented chord. You'd make that sharp, and that's what that would look like. Now, beyond 3 chords, you can have, 3 notes, you can have 4 notes. Well, let's add another note, and we get a B. Okay, there's our B. So now we have a 7th chord. Why do we call that a 7th chord? Because if you measure the distance from C to B, that's a 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 7 letters in the alphabet. There's different kinds of 7th chords, but that's really one type of 7th chord. It's an interval of a 7th, right? So that looks like that's C, M-A-J, M-A-J, or major 7, C major 7. Why is it a major 7? Because B is the 7th note in the C major scale. But there's others. There's other kinds of 7th chords as well. Now, if you can think of the 7th chord as being the result of 2 triads. So what do I mean by that? Well, the lower triad here, that's C major, and the upper triad here is E minor, all right? And they kind of overlap. So they share these 2 notes here. Here's E major, right? Here's E minor, G natural, and that's why that's in E minor. There's no G in the key of E. That's a flatted third. Even though it's G natural, we consider that has a flatted third in it in the key of E. So, but that's one way to understand major 7 chords, or 7 chords anyway, all kinds of 7 chords. Now, if we make this, if we go from B to B flat, then we get a different kind of chord. We get C7 instead of this. Very different sound. We refer to that as dominant, D-O-M-I-N-A-N-T, dominant 7. And the word dominant in music means 5. So we're talking about 2 things. We're talking about what notes are in the chord, right? What the chord is, and how it functions in music. This is the 5th chord in the key of F. F, G, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's why there is a B flat in the key of F. It functions as the dominant chord. Now, if we do something else, let's get rid of that. And typically the major 7 functions, we just back up for 7, the major 7, that functions as the 1 chord, and it also functions as the 4 chord typically. So in in the key of C. That's the first chord in the key of C. It's also the 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth chord in the key of G. All right, those two keys share that one chord. Then we have C minor 7. What do we do there? Well, we got to lower the third. Okay, we got to lower the third to E flat. All right, and now it's minor 7. Now let's back up a bit. This again can be understood as two triads: a C minor triad and an E flat major triad, and they share these two notes. Likewise, we'll just back up for 7. C7, what we said was C7 with the E natural here. That's C major and E diminished. That's naturally a diminished chord. The top part of the dominant chord is diminished. So in a C7, the top part is diminished, the lower part is major, right? But you change it to minor, and suddenly you get this chord here now. The basic triad is minor, and the top part is diminished, right? Right? Oh, excuse me, not diminished, major. Don't listen to what I say. Yeah, that's me. Do as I do, not as I say. That's major, right? Kind of switched for a second. Major 7, we had a major on the bottom and a minor on top. Minor 7, we have a minor on the bottom and a major on top. Kind of interesting. And then if you take the G, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth note, and you flat it, you get C minor 7 flat 5, which is also referred to as half diminished. Now, why would it be half diminished? Well, I'll get to that in a second, but it is, so just trust me. That's what it sounds like now, okay? C minor 7, flat 5. You have a root, a flatted third, a flatted fifth, and a flatted 7. Now, why am I calling it flatted 7th? Well, in the key of C, there is a C, but there's no E flat. There's an E natural. That's the third note, so we flat that. There's no G natural. That's the fifth note, so we flat that. There's no B natural. There's no B flat. There's B natural, so we flat that. And that's why we refer to those scale degrees, SCALE degrees, like a degree on a thermometer. Okay, we refer to them as. Right? So that's now a diminished 7 chord, and the word diminished, okay, referring if you take a major interval, this is a perfect fifth, and you lower it a half step, you get a diminished interval. Right? There's different types of intervals, but typically we talk about major, we talk about perfect intervals, and then major intervals. Perfect intervals are fifths, fourths, and octaves. Major intervals, major third, major sixth, major seventh, right? Major second. Those are major intervals, right? If you take a major interval, lower it a half step, you get a minor. If you take a perfect interval, lower it a half step, you don't get a minor. You get a diminished interval, right? Now, let's go back to the 7th. Here's a major 7th. If I play B flat, that is a minor 7th, that interval. And if I flat it again, which is called a double flat, it becomes diminished. So that note, even though we can call it A on the piano, it's actually referred to as B double flat. B flat, B double flat. B double flat. It looks like that. Okay. And it's perfectly fine. And I'm a really big advocate. I'm going to change this now because we've changed it to a diminished 7. The minor 7 flat 5, that's a combination of a diminished triad and a minor triad. If we make it diminished, now we have a diminished triad in the bottom and a diminished triad on the top. It's kind of a symmetrical chord. So I want you to, again, notice something about all of the chord types, and I'm going to list them here again. So, gosh whiz, I don't know if I have any other erasers. I'm going to make it a project next time to, either get better markers or better erasers or something, because this is awful, boy. So you have major, minor, diminished, right? And then we mentioned augmented earlier. Those are for the triads, right? Then for the seventh chords, right? You have major, minor, major, dominant. Right? So it's still kind of major in the bottom. Minor, 7, flat 5, and then diminished. So there's like a kind of a transition almost between each of those triad types. But what those all have in common, if you start, it doesn't matter what kind of chord you have. If you start on a C, let's say, the next note is E, and the next note is G, and the next note is B, and that's that. You know, you might have a B flat, you might have an E flat. You know, it's possible. Whatever, you could have a G flat, you could have a B double flat. But the point is that you're always skipping. You're always skipping. These are thirds, some kind of thirds. They might be major or minor thirds, but nevertheless, that's a consistency in music theory. And if you're reading music, it becomes very important because, again, if you're reading on the staff, if you're reading the 5 notes on the staff, you're going space, 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 or line, 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 right? That's what you expect to see in a root position chord. And if you don't see that, something's wrong. Something has to be fixed. That's how you learn to read music, and that's how you learn to understand music, and not shy away from the double flats. And there's something called a double sharp as well. Okay. Now let's go beyond sevenths. Beyond sevenths. Oh my goodness. Yes, my friends. There is more than sevenths in the world. There are ninths. Okay, so what would that be? Well, you add an extra note. Let's say C, E, G, B, D. That is the root. Third, fifth, seventh, and ninth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's your D. C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. There's your ninth. Okay, and again, there are different types of ninths, but when you start getting into anything above a seventh, we call those extensions. Okay, you're going beyond the octave. Okay, so let's just take these notes right out of the box. This chord here, right, would be C major 9, or you could say C major 7, and you put a ninth into parentheses with an added ninth. Both of those would be correct. Now, if for some reason I wanted to change a note in this chord, well, if I wanted to change it to E flat, let's say, that would be minor 9. Or if I wanted to change it to B flat, that would be C9. Okay, so I would have to change those, right? I would have to the ninth chord would be, if I would change this to B flat, that would be C9, right? Or C7 with an added ninth. Again, we're looking at the basic seventh chord and then the ninth chord beyond that. If I added an E flat, that's C minor 7 with an added ninth, or C minor 9. Either one of those would be fine. The minor 7 flat 5, that's possible. You don't really run into that often because it kind of sounds, it's a lot more dissonant. It's possible, but you know, C minor 7 flat 5 with an added ninth. I guess you do. I suppose so. Half diminished 9. I guess. I'm not often used to seeing that as a chord symbol. If I decide to change the top note, the D, to say D flat, that would be a flat 9. All right. So C 7 flat 9. You see that a lot. C7 flat 9. That's the chord. Or if I wanted to raise at a half step, and that would be a sharp 9, okay? So that would be D sharp. That's a sharp 9 right there. C7, sharp 9. You could say, again, C sharp 9. That kind of works, okay? So those are referred to as ALTER, alterations. Not like taking in your pants to the tailor, but those are, you're changing something. You're taking the extension and you're altering. Now, an alteration can be, of course, like a fifth. You know, if you flat the fifth, that's fine. But you have an altered extension, I guess, is what you really have. Okay. So okay, what's beyond the ninth? You want to take a guess? I bet you can guess. You skip numbers, odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. There are 11 chords. So the 11, if you skip up another note from D, D, E, F, okay. Again, why am I calling it a skip? I'm skipping a note in the alphabet, right? I'm skipping E. I'm skipping a key on the piano. So that's the 11. Now, that's what the chord would sound like, right? C7 with an added ninth and 11. Or you could call it just C11, all right? That's possible. That's not necessarily the most ideal way to make that chord, but there are different ways to voice it, which I'm not going to get into today, but I just want to get into the nuts and bolts of how you do this. Now, what's after the 11th? Well, you can have one more thing. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's a 13th, okay? So skipping up from F, F, G, A. That would be an A. And here you have, there's your 13. So that would be C7 with an added 9th, 11th, and 13th. How do you like that? That's pretty cool. Now, that's a lot of notes. You may not want all those notes, but that's kind of how we get chords. Now, you could alter some of them, not others. So, by the way, let me say flatted 7 in case you didn't catch that earlier. That's a flatted 7 because we have the B flat, and a flatted third would not be there because we have the dominant. Okay, so C, E, G, B, D. These are the extensions. Extensions. Okay, those are the extensions. All right. Any questions so far? Well, I wouldn't know because this isn't a live stream, but you could certainly email me and let me know if you did have a question. Let's erase this, okay? And let's just kind of show you for a second what that might look like. Looks like I have like screen burn in here or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Treble clef, bass clef. Okay, so we're writing these chords earlier: C, E, G, B, D, F, A, and then we're back to the C again, right? So C, E, G, B, D, F, A. Again, they're all on spaces, right? It's easy to conceive of, okay? Now, that would be C major 7 with an added 9th, 11th, and 13th. And usually you write the chord symbol up here, C major 7 with an added 9th, 11, and 13. But again, that's not necessarily the way that I would voice it. I'll get into that another time. Now, looking at it as triads, again, C major, okay, E minor, G, G, B, D, G major, B, B, D, F, that's B diminished. D minor, D, F, A, D minor, and we're kind of running out of notes, F and A. Well, we're back to the C again, so it kind of implies, sort of implies another C major chord. C major, E minor, G major, B diminished, D minor, and your F major, right? And that's how you can understand more complicated chords. You understand them in terms of simpler chords, okay, simpler triads. So what do you think? That was an enormous amount of information. Some of you may already know that, some of you may not already know that, but that's kind of sort of, I tried to give you most of the information. Again, next time we'll talk about, how to play those chords stylistically so that they sound good on the piano, okay? Because if you play a note real low on the piano, like, here's your C, here, if I play this real low, that's getting hard to hear. And if I play it real low, you can't even hear that. That's just a grumbling sound. So you have to know how to spread the notes out, how to use them judiciously. And then also, once you get them to work on the piano so that they sound good, then you also want them to work in the style of music that you're playing. If you're playing classical music, playing jazz, you're playing folk music or blues or whatever. And there are typical kind of go-to voicings that one would use stylistically. So I hope that was helpful. We're kind of running out of time, but we're having a beautiful summer, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy the summer. This is Jonathan at Piano Lessons. Drop me a line, send out a carrier pigeon, do something, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.